The final confrontation came not through massive battles but through the power of truth. When the Genesis fleet arrived at the Council's capital system, they brought irrefutable evidence of the ancient genocide. The massive archives discovered in the Omega Nebula were broadcast simultaneously across thousands of worlds. Quantum transmitters carried the data in every known language. Human computers had translated everything perfectly. The reaction was immediate and devastating for Council. Authority species after species demanded explanations for the lies they had been told. Others declared independence from the corrupt organization. The Zentari Supreme Judge, who had banished humanity 20 years earlier, stood before empty chambers as his government collapsed around him. The truth that humanity had uncovered was spreading faster than any attempt to suppress it. But Fleet Admiral Shin Jae-wook had not come to celebrate the Council's downfall. His forces moved quickly to protect refugee convoys and establish safe corridors for species fleeing the chaos. When the Saurid Empire tried to exploit the confusion by launching invasions of neighboring systems, human fleets responded with surgical precision. The military might built during exile was now used to protect the innocent. The war that followed was brief but decisive. The Saurid Empire had grown used to fighting defensive-minded Council forces. They were unprepared for humanity's aggressive tactics and superior technology. Human pilots fought with creativity and determination that overwhelmed traditional battle formations. Within 6 months, Saurid expansion was halted, their fleets scattered, and their homeworld occupied. But the Commonwealth occupation focused on rebuilding rather than revenge. Human engineers worked alongside former enemies to repair war damage. Commonwealth medical teams treated Saurid wounded without discrimination. Human teachers began setting up schools to educate Saurid children about cooperation instead of conquest. The occupation became a model for how civilized species should behave. Dr. Lee Sora, now Director of Commonwealth Xenological Studies, established the new Galactic Accord on the ruins of the old Council. This organization would operate on completely different principles. Voluntary association replaced forced membership. Mutual aid replaced exploitation. Respect for diversity replaced enforced conformity. Species could choose their level of participation without fear of punishment. The inaugural session of the new Galactic Assembly was held on New Terra. Representatives from over 300 species attended, including many who had never been allowed in the old Council. The Crystal Chamber, where humanity had been judged and banished, now hosted discussions about freedom, cooperation, and mutual respect. The irony was perfect. President Jiang addressed the assembly with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. He spoke about humanity's journey from exile to leadership. He explained how adversity had forged humans into something stronger. He promised that the Commonwealth would never become the oppressive force that the Council had been. Power would be shared, not hoarded. The ancient archives were made available to all species. Scientists and historians from across the galaxy came to study the records. The true history of galactic civilization was finally revealed. Textbooks were rewritten. Museums were rebuilt. The lies that had sustained Council authority for millions of years were replaced with truth. Trade networks established during the Commonwealth's expansion became the foundation for galactic prosperity. Species that had been isolated under Council rule now had access to markets and technologies they had never imagined. Economic growth exploded as barriers were removed and innovation was encouraged. The galaxy entered a new golden age. Human colonies continued expanding, but now they were joined by settlements from allied species. Mixed communities became common as different species learned to live and work together. The Commonwealth's educational system spread to new worlds, creating generations of truly galactic citizens who thought beyond the boundaries of their birth species. The military academies that had trained Commonwealth officers became models for the new Galactic Defense Force. Instead of species-specific units, the new military emphasized integration and cooperation. Humans worked alongside Kellery crystal singers served with hive minds. The galaxy's defenders reflected its diversity. Years passed and the Commonwealth's influence grew. The new Galactic Accord became the preferred system of government for most of the galaxy. The few remaining Council loyalists were marginalized and eventually forgotten. The Saurid Empire was reformed as a peaceful member of the Galactic community. Even former enemies learned to embrace cooperation over conflict. Children born after the Accord grew up in a galaxy their parents could never have imagined. They learned about the dark days of council rule as ancient history. They studied multiple alien cultures as naturally as they learned mathematics. They dreamed of exploring new galaxies and meeting species not yet discovered. The future was bright with infinite possibilities. As President Jiang prepared to step down after leading humanity through its greatest transformation, he reflected on the incredible journey that species that had been deemed too dangerous for civilization had become its salvation. Their supposed flaws had proven to be their greatest strengths. Adaptability had let them thrive in exile. Competitiveness had driven unprecedented innovation. Protective instincts had made them the galaxy's most effective peacekeepers. The Council had tried to eliminate humanity, but instead had forged them into something far greater. The exile that was meant to be punishment had become preparation. The isolation that was meant to weaken them had made them stronger. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had proven that sometimes the greatest victories come not from avoiding exile, but from making the most of it. The Commonwealth continued to grow, reaching toward distant galaxies and new frontiers. Humanity had learned that being banished was not the end of their story. It was just the beginning of their greatest adventure. The galaxy had tried to cast them out, but they had returned. As its leaders, the species that nobody expected to succeed had built an empire that would last forever. 15 years had passed since the exile, and humanity had built something the galaxy had never seen before. The human Commonwealth stretched across 3 spiral arms. It included over 200 star systems and billions of people. Unlike the rigid power structure of the Galactic Council, human society had become a flexible network of independent colonies united by shared values and instant communication. President Jiang Sung-min spoke to the Commonwealth Parliament from the capital world of New Terra. He announced the completion of humanity's greatest project. The Genesis fleet consisted of massive world ships that could support millions of people during long voyages. Each vessel was a complete civilization, with manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, and even artificial ecosystems. They represented humanity's commitment to continued expansion and exploration. The fleet's first mission would be a return to Council space, but not as conquerors. They would come as liberators. Intelligence gathered from alien refugees and independent traders showed that Council authority was weakening. Member species were unhappy with increasing taxes and restrictions. Frontier worlds complained about inadequate protection from pirates and raiders. The time was right for humanity to offer something better. Admiral Park Subin commanded the expedition from the flagship New Earth, a vessel larger than most space stations. Her crew included not just humans but representatives from dozens of species who had chosen to join the Commonwealth rather than remain under Council rule. The Crystal Singers provided their mastery of energy manipulation. The hive minds contributed their collective intelligence to fleet coordination as the Genesis fleet approached Council space. They were met by a delegation from the Kalari Confederation, the same species that had demanded humanity's exile 15 years earlier, now sought alliance with the Commonwealth. Their homeworld was under attack by the militaristic Saurid Empire, and the Council had voted to abandon them rather than risk war humanity. The supposedly violent and unpredictable species was their only hope for survival. The irony was not lost on Admiral Park. The species that had called humans too dangerous for civilization now begged for human protection. But she felt no satisfaction in their desperation, only determination to prove that humanity was better than its enemies. The Commonwealth fleet moved to defend Kalari space not for revenge but because it was the right thing to do. The first battle between Commonwealth forces and the Saurid Empire shocked both sides. Human ships moved with unprecedented speed and coordination. Their weapons were more advanced than anything the Saurids had faced. The battle was over in hours, with Saurid forces retreating in confusion. Human casualties were minimal, while enemy losses were catastrophic. News of the victory spread throughout Council space faster than official reports could suppress it. Species that had been considering rebellion against Council rule now saw that there was an alternative. The Commonwealth offered protection without demanding submission, technology without bureaucratic control, trade without exploitation. More species began sending secret delegations to Commonwealth territory. The insectoid Kithra brought their biotechnology expertise. The aquatic Nereid offered their mastery of underwater cities. The nomadic wanderer clans provided their knowledge of deep space navigation. Each new alliance made the Commonwealth stronger and the Council weaker. Human colonies continued expanding at an incredible rate. New worlds were settled every month. Existing colonies grew into major industrial centers. The Commonwealth's population reached 10 billion people spread across hundreds of worlds. The economy was booming as human innovation combined with alien expertise created unprecedented prosperity. The educational system that had been developed in the early colonies was now producing remarkable results. Commonwealth citizens were more educated, more creative, and more adaptable than their council counterparts. Young humans spoke multiple alien languages, understood complex technologies, and could work effectively with dozens of different species. They were becoming true galactic citizens. Military academies trained officers from many species in Commonwealth tactics and strategy. The emphasis was on flexibility, creativity, and mutual support rather than the rigid hierarchies used by council forces. Mixed species crews worked together seamlessly. Human intuition combined with hive mind analysis and crystal singer precision created military units more effective than any pure species force. The Commonwealth's diplomatic corps was equally impressive. Ambassador teams included experts in every major alien culture. They negotiated trade agreements, established mutual defense pacts, and mediated disputes between species. The Commonwealth was becoming the galaxy's preferred alternative to council bureaucracy. Intelligence networks brought constant reports of growing unrest in council territory. The Zentari government that had banished humanity was facing rebellion on multiple worlds. The Veltar Collective was split by civil war. The mighty council that had once seemed unshakable was crumbling from within. But the Commonwealth's greatest strength was not military or economic. It was moral. The ancient records from the Omega Nebula had been carefully studied and prepared for release. When the time came, humanity would reveal the truth about council history. The evidence of genocide and historical lies would destroy the council's legitimacy forever. President Zhang met with his advisors to plan the final phase. They had the military power to defeat the council. They had the economic strength to replace it. They had the moral authority to judge it. Most importantly, they had the support of dozens of species who wanted freedom from council oppression. The Commonwealth was ready to reshape galactic civilization. The Genesis fleet continued its journey toward the council's heart. Each system they entered saw local species joining the Commonwealth or declaring independence from the council. The movement was becoming unstoppable. What had begun as humanity's punishment was becoming the galaxy's salvation. The species that had been banished for being too dangerous was proving to be exactly what the galaxy needed. 10 years after the exile exploration vessel Busan's Dream made a discovery that would change everything. Captain Ko In-ho was investigating strange energy readings in the Omega Nebula when his ship found something incredible. Hidden within the stellar nursery were artificial structures clearly built by intelligent beings. What they discovered challenged everything the Galactic Council taught about the history of space civilization. The structures were enormous space stations built with technology far beyond anything humans or council species possessed. Dr. Han Mi-kyung led the research team that carefully explored the abandoned stations. They found evidence of a civilization that existed millions of years ago. These ancient beings had been the true first spacefaring species existing long before the Council was even formed. The records they found were shocking. The ancient civilization had not died out naturally. They had been systematically destroyed by the ancestors of the current Council species. The very aliens that claimed to be the peaceful guardians of galactic civilization had committed genocide on a scale that made human wars look tiny. They had buried the evidence and rewritten history to make themselves look like the original peaceful explorers. Chief Engineer Lim Dong-wook's team made another amazing discovery while studying the ancient technology. The aliens had developed a way to travel faster than light without using the jump gates that the Council controlled. This technology, when combined with human improvements, would let humanity reach any point in the galaxy within weeks instead of months. Humans would no longer depend on Council infrastructure. The implications were staggering. Humanity had found proof that would expose the Council's lies. They had also discovered technology that would make them truly independent. Captain Ko sent the findings back to Human Command through encrypted quantum channels. He knew this discovery would change everything. The exiled humans were no longer just survivors. They were the heirs to a legacy older than galactic civilization itself. The research teams worked around the clock to understand the ancient technology. They found star maps showing thousands of worlds that had been inhabited by the extinct species. Most of these worlds were now empty, forgotten by the Council. They also found records of other species that had been destroyed when they became too powerful or too independent. The pattern was clear. The Council had been eliminating potential rivals for millions of years. Dr. Kim Soo-jin studied the biological remains found in the stations. The ancient species had been remarkably similar to humans in many ways. They valued individual freedom. They were curious explorers. They had been innovative and adaptable. Most disturbing of all, they had been destroyed specifically because these traits made them dangerous to the established order. The quantum communication network carried news of the discovery to every human colony. The reaction was immediate and intense. Some humans wanted to use the evidence to expose the Council immediately. Others argued for keeping it secret until humanity was strong enough to protect itself. The debate raged in colonial assemblies and military headquarters across human space. Admiral Shin Jae-wook called a meeting of all senior military commanders. The evidence changed everything. If the Council had destroyed one advanced civilization, they would certainly try to destroy humanity when they realized how powerful humans had become. The human military needed to prepare for the possibility of war while also planning how to use the new technology. The ancient, faster-than-light drive was incredibly complex, but human engineers were determined to master it. Test flights began in secret using small automated probes. The technology worked perfectly. Human ships could now travel anywhere in the galaxy without depending on Council jump gates. This gave humanity the ultimate strategic advantage. Intelligence reports from human agents still operating in Council space brought disturbing news. The Council had noticed human expansion and was growing concerned. Some Council members were calling for military action against the human colonies before they became too powerful to control. The debate sounded exactly like the discussions that had led to the ancient genocide. President Jang Sung-min addressed the colonial parliament. From New Terra, the evidence of Council crimes would be preserved and protected but not revealed immediately. Humanity needed time to prepare for what was coming. The discovery had given them incredible technology, but it had also shown them their ultimate enemy. The same forces that had destroyed the ancients were now turning their attention to humanity. The research continued as human scientists worked to understand every aspect of the ancient civilization. They found plans for weapons that could destroy entire fleets, records of defensive systems that could protect whole star systems. Most importantly, they found the philosophical writings of the ancient species. Their final messages spoke of hope that someday another species would find their records and continue their legacy of freedom and exploration. That species was humanity. Human colonies began secretly implementing the new technologies. Manufacturing facilities were retooled to produce advanced weapons and defensive systems. Shipyards started building vessels using the ancient faster-than-light drives. The preparations were disguised as normal colonial expansion, but they were actually preparation for the war that was coming. The discovery in the Omega Nebula had given humanity two things: the technology they needed to survive the coming conflict and the moral justification for opposing the Council. The same organization that had banished humanity for being too violent had itself committed the greatest violence in galactic history. Now humanity would have to decide whether to hide from this truth or use it to forge a new future for all the galaxy's species. 5 years after leaving Council space, Humanity had changed from scared refugees into confident pioneers. The scattered colonies had grown into beautiful cities, connected by networks of trade routes and communication systems. What the Galactic Council meant as punishment had become opportunity. Humans could now create new technology without alien bureaucrats slowing them down. Dr. Kang Ji-hoon made the discovery that changed everything. Working in a laboratory carved inside an asteroid, he found a way to connect human minds directly to computer systems. The technology let people control machines just by thinking about it. Ship pilots could navigate through space faster than ever before. Factory workers could control dozens of robots. At the same time, within months, human ships were moving through space better than even the most advanced alien vessels. Admiral Shin Jae-wook was building humanity's first real space navy. These were not the defensive ships they had used in Council space. These new ships were designed for exploration and expansion. Fast corvettes scouted new star systems. Massive battleships protected the growing colonies. The ships used lessons learned from captured alien technology, but improved them with human creativity and determination. The breakthrough in instant communication came from an accident. Communications officer Bae Yeon-soo was trying to contact a distant mining station when she created something amazing. The phenomenon let human colonies talk to each other instantly across thousands of light years, something even the most advanced council species had never achieved. Suddenly, scattered human settlements could work together as if they were all in the same solar system. Trade relationships formed with independent species living in the outer rim. The hive minds appreciated how efficiently humans worked. The crystal singers were fascinated by human music and art. These partnerships gave humans resources and knowledge that made them develop even faster. More importantly, they proved humans could live peacefully with aliens when not restricted by the Council's old rules and prejudices. Human colonies specialized in different things. New Terra became the center of government, and education. New Busan focused on heavy industry and shipbuilding. New Seoul became famous for art and culture. New Jeju developed the best agricultural techniques. Each world contributed to the whole, and all humans benefited from this cooperation. The success attracted attention from aliens living under council rule. Refugees began arriving at human settlements. They brought stories of increasing oppression and taxation in council space. The council was becoming more controlling as they tried to maintain power. Many alien species were starting to question why they needed the council at all. Human scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough without council restrictions. Dr. Han Mi-kyung developed new medical techniques that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Engineer Lim Dong-wook created manufacturing processes that could build ships and cities faster than anyone thought possible. Physicist Park Soo-bin discovered new forms of energy that made human technology incredibly powerful. The education system in human colonies was completely different from council standards. Children learned practical skills alongside academic subjects. They studied alien cultures not to copy them but to understand them better. Students were encouraged to question everything and find new solutions to old problems. This created a generation of humans who thought differently from any humans before. By the 5th year, human space covered an area larger than some council member territories. The population had grown from refugees to over 50 million people, spread across dozens of worlds. Human ships regularly explored new systems and made contact with previously unknown alien species. Most importantly, humans were happy. They had built a society based on freedom, cooperation, and the belief that anyone could achieve great things. Military exercises showed that human forces could defend their territory against any threat. Human tactics were aggressive and unpredictable compared to the rigid formations used by council fleets. Human pilots were trained to think independently and adapt quickly to changing situations. Human weapons combined the best alien technology with human improvements, making them incredibly effective. The council began to notice that something was happening in the outer rim. Their long-range sensors detected human ships moving through previously unexplored space. Intelligence reports mentioned advanced technology and growing populations. But the council leaders dismissed these reports. They still thought of humans as primitive refugees who would eventually fail without alien guidance. They had no idea that humanity was building something that would challenge everything. They believed about galactic civilization. The big crystal room was filled with strange voices from all over the galaxy. Admiral Lee Dae-ho stood in the middle of it all. His old face showed no fear, even though thousands of alien eyes stared at him. The blue-skinned Kalari pointed their sharp claws at him. They spoke in their singing language, but the machines turned their words into angry sounds about how humans were too violent and could not be trusted. Captain Park. Minseo watched from high above. Her hands held the metal rail, so tight her knuckles turned white. She had worked with Dae-ho for 15 long years. She knew the real truth about what humans had done. They saved 3 worlds from space pirates. They protected trade ships when other aliens ran away. They saved millions of lives, but the Council only saw fighting where there had been helping. They saw chaos where humans brought peace. The golden-furred Zentari judge lifted his big staff. The whole room became quiet. His words echoed like thunder in the huge space. He said humanity was too dangerous and too wild for civilized space. They could not be trusted with other peaceful species. The Council would take away all human rights. Their colonies would be given to other species. All humans must leave Council space in 30 days or their ships would be destroyed. Dae-ho finally spoke. His voice was calm and strong. He thanked the Council for their decision. He promised humans would do what they were told. But Minseo saw something strange. She saw a tiny smile on his face. She had seen that look before. It always came right before he did something amazing and unexpected. The human group left without saying more words, but news traveled fast through secret human networks. Scientists like Dr. Kim, Soo-jin started hiding all their research. Engineers like Commander Choi Byung-hun began making plans for moving shipyards. If the galaxy wanted humans gone, they would leave. But they would not go quietly into the dark, empty space. They would not go with empty hands. Back on Earth, people gathered in the streets. They watched the news on big screens. Some cried. Some got angry, but most just looked determined. President Park Ji-ho spoke to the whole world. He said this was not the end. This was a new beginning. Humans had always been explorers. They had always found ways to survive when things got hard. The galaxy thought it was punishing them, but it was really setting them free. In secret military bases, generals met with scientists. They looked at maps of unexplored space. They made lists of supplies and people. Ships that were being built for exploration were changed into colony vessels. Factories that made luxury goods switched to making tools and machines. Everything humanity had learned about surviving in space would be needed. Now the Kalari delegate who had spoken against humans watched the news reports from Earth. She saw humans working together instead of fighting. She saw them helping each other pack for the long journey ahead. For the first time, she wondered if the Council had made a mistake, but it was too late now. The decision was made and could not be changed. Children in human schools learned about the great journey they would take. Teachers told them stories about brave explorers who had crossed Earth's oceans long ago. Now humanity would cross the ocean of space to find new homes far away. The children were scared, but also excited. They would see things no human had ever seen before. Dr. Kim Soo-jin worked day and night to save human knowledge. She copied everything into special computers that could survive the journey, medical research that could save lives, engineering plans that could build cities on new worlds, art and music that would keep human culture alive. She knew that knowledge was more valuable than gold or weapons. Commander Choi Byung-hun designed new types of ships. These would not be like the ships humans used before. They would be like floating cities that could travel between stars. They would have farms to grow food, factories to make what people needed, schools and hospitals and parks. Everything humans would need to start over in a new place. The 30 days passed quickly. Humans said goodbye to worlds they had called home for hundreds of years. They took one last look at the blue skies and green forests they were leaving behind. But they also looked up at the stars and dreamed of what they might find out there. The galaxy thought it was getting rid of a problem. But humanity was about to become something much more powerful than anyone could imagine. 6 months after the council said humans must leave, the great journey began. Huge colony ships left from dozens of worlds. Each ship carried thousands of people who had to abandon everything they built. Captain Yoon Da-min led one of the biggest ships called New Seoul. It carried families who had lived on the industrial world of Kepler for many generations. Now they had to start over with nothing but hope. The trip to the outer edge of the galaxy took 8 long months. Ships broke down all the time. Food and water ran low. People got scared and angry because nobody knew what would happen to them. But humans had always been good at making things work. Engineer Park Tae-woo organized repair teams that fixed broken ships with spare parts. Dr. Song Hee-jin started schools so children could keep learning even on the crowded ships. Their new home was far away in a part of space called the Andromeda Spiral Arm. It was so far from Council space that even the bravest alien traders never went there. The first human scout said there were many worlds where people could live, rich asteroid belts full of metals, and most important, no signs of other intelligent life. It was like a blank page where humanity could write a new story. When the colony ships finally arrived, people cried when they saw their new home. Binary stars made the space clouds glow with beautiful colors. Gas giants drifted through systems rich with rare materials. Captain Lee Yu-na led the advanced scouts. She sent back pictures that made tired colonists feel hope again. Here among the distant stars, they could build something completely new. The first settlements were simple, but they worked. Commander Na Dong-hyun set up mining operations on moons with no air. Agricultural specialist Im So-young worked to make earth plants grow in alien soil. Every person had a job to do. Children helped with growing food in special rooms. Old people shared wisdom from the past. They were no longer citizens of the galaxy, but they were still human, and that meant everything. Families that had never done hard physical work learned to build homes with their own hands. Scientists who had worked in fancy laboratories now dug in dirt to plant crops. Engineers who designed starships now fixed water pumps and air recyclers. But nobody complained. Everyone understood they were building the future of the human race. The first winter on New Terra was hard. Many people got sick because the air was different from Earth. Some crops failed and people went hungry, but humans helped each other survive. Neighbors shared food. Doctors worked without rest to save lives. Engineers found ways to make the heating systems work better. By spring, the colony was stronger. Communication between the scattered human settlements was difficult at first. Ships had to carry messages between worlds, and that took months. But human engineers were always finding new solutions. They built relay stations that could send messages faster. Soon, all the human colonies could talk to each other almost instantly. This made them feel less alone in the vast empty space. After 2 years, the colonies started to grow beyond just surviving. New Terra had its first graduation ceremony as children, finished school. New Busan opened its first factory to make tools and machines. New Seoul started its first hospital with equipment built from scratch. Humans were not just surviving anymore, they were building a civilization. The alien species that lived in the outer rim were curious about these new neighbors. The insect-like hive minds came to trade metals for human-manufactured goods. The mysterious crystal singers exchanged their energy weapons for human music and art. These aliens were different from the council species. They did not look down on humans or try to control them. They just wanted to trade and learn. By the 3rd year, human engineers had built the first new starships. These were not like the old ships that followed council designs. They were faster, more efficient, and designed specifically for human needs. The ships could travel farther than any human vessel before. They opened up new worlds for exploration and settlement. Some humans wanted to go back and fight the council. They said the aliens had been unfair and should be punished, but the leaders were smarter. They knew that revenge would only bring more war. Instead, they focused on building something better than what they had lost. They were creating a society based on human values, not alien rules. The children born in the new colonies grew up differently than children on Earth. They learned to fix complex machines before they learned to ride bicycles. They studied alien languages and customs. As easily as they learned mathematics, these children would grow up to be the bridge between humans and the galaxy. They would be the ones to show the universe what humanity could really become.